Well, good Sunday morning, everyone. Hello, and my name is Larry Locke, and for those of you who don't know me, I've been channeling extraterrestrials for about 15 years now. In fact, the ball got rolling on December 28th of 2010, so we're coming up on 15 Earth years since the first one happened. Now, I've channeled about 26 different collective/beings from the Pleiades, another 5 from Arcturus, and 1 from a place called Procyon. Now, for years, it was just the Pleiadians that I channeled. Okay, then I had one Arcturian collective. I only had a couple of channelings with them years ago. The difference for me is the Pleiadians are like my higher self. The Arcturians are an overself. Dealing with the Pleiadians is a lot more mellow, as far as I'm concerned. Relaxing, and they're funny. They're kind of still more like Earth humans a lot. The Arcturians are wonderful too. They got a great sense of humor. They're like a grandparent race to me. Okay, some souls are directly from Arcturus. I've met a couple handful of them, on here, on Facebook, and on different social media platforms that I've been on all these years, doing shows on YouTube and stuff. And their higher self is Arcturian, versus somebody like me, who my higher self is a Pleiadian, right? And then my over self is Arcturian. When I'm dealing with the Arcturians, like I said, it's kind of like dealing with my grandparents. They've even told me to relax. I'm not as, I'm very just straight up business when I'm being channeled by them. I don't joke around or anything like that. They will just kind of give you that look if you tell them a joke, because they're so highly ascended that it doesn't register. It'd be like trying to explain an arithmetic problem to somebody as ascended in math as Albert Einstein or Tesla. Okay, that's what they're like. One of the races that I channel from there, the Arcturian Crystal Blue Angels, they've tried to joke with me a little bit before and ask me questions about things in my personal life. And, just kind of not prying, but being concerning like a grandparent would in a loving way. And I'm just kind of, well, you probably know. I told them, well, you probably already know the answer to that. And that was into that. And they don't really do that with me anymore. Okay, so I'm still getting used to channeling them. They've came to me. I haven't asked to channel any of them. The other 4 have came along in the last year and a half. Okay, before that it was just 1, and I'd only had a couple channelings with them. So the difference for me is one is like more of a grandparent race. One's more of a, an uncle type, really, really older brother, sister race. And the Arcturians, of course, helped guide the Pleiadians, even though they were seeded mainly by the Lyrans. But the Lyrans were busy after helping settle Pleiades. They were busy with that billion-year war with Orion. Now I'm going to get into a little bit about our galactic history, if time will permit. This galaxy was settled, and it took a 13-year quest for me to get some of this. There was a collective of about 20,000 souls. There were about 200 different families and about 33 different races of people. Now, these were humanoids. We're talking reptoids. We're talking eagleoids. Caninoids. Felinoids. Humans that looked like us, exactly, and then humans that were of all kinds of different skin colors of the rainbow. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And they lived in a galaxy about 6 galaxies away, is what I understand. We don't know where. They came in through the Antares Gateway when they found this, godforsaken galaxy out on the outskirts of the universe. They were from a place that was really ascended, that had highly evolved planets that intermingled with each other like, nations would, like a European Union or like states would, only, they all got along. So they weren't running from anything or anything. They wanted to go and see if they couldn't colonize somewhere else. They had achieved what they wanted to do. So all these people got together in about 12 different huge-ass city-like motherships, is what I understand, and they set out. Well, after about a 5-year journey, they stumbled upon this universe, okay? They stumbled upon Arcturus and Andromeda at the same time, okay? A faction of them found Andromeda. Now, what's interesting is Arcturus and Andromeda were seeded with the same DNA blueprint. It wasn't a mixture of different DNAs. It was the same DNA blueprint that seeded both of them. What I'm trying to say is that it wasn't a different mix of DNA. It was it was a few different families that contributed to the DNA, and they did it for both. So they were the same exact race, just in two different places. They were basically the chosen one. These two galaxies were chosen out of this universe to be the chosen galaxies, and the Arcturian souls and the Andromedan souls were the chosen ones. Now, they were exactly the same. Now, keep in mind, they evolved in two different spots, though, okay? There was many intergalactic wars between Andromeda and Arcturus before Andromeda and Arcturus settled down. And then, of course, the Lyrans came along and the Vegans came along. They had many wars with each other. Now, getting back to this race of people, or these races of people, so they spread out throughout the galaxy and the universe, and they started creating other civilizations, right? The Reptoids, of course, settled Draco. The canine ones settled Sirius, and so forth. And there was a race on the Pleiades before this race they have now. They destroyed each other in an all-out constellation war with each other, interconstellation war, or a civil one, between themselves. So when they were done with that war, that Pleiadian race was completely destroyed, decimated. They had, thousands of planets. They had 3 left that were habitable, and they had another 7 that could even be, biodomed. Okay, so the Lyrans and the Orions got into a major war. Okay, after the Lyrans let the Orions in, the Orions conned their way into settling, some of the Dracos over in Lyra. Well, the Dracos got greedy, wanted to fleece all the resources, and eventually they did. They conned and hustled their way, and it turned into a galactic war between the two. And then, Lyra was destroyed. They, stabbed the Lyrans in the back and destroyed most of the planets there. Okay, so the Lyrans set off to go find somewhere else to, start a civilization. So they found the Pleiades. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Most of the Pleiadian DNA is Lyran. Okay, some of it, a little bit of it's Vegan. But the Vegans and the Lyrans are about a 3/4 match with each other, their DNA blueprints. So you can imagine that. Now, there was another race called the Golden Ones, the Chosen Ones, that were left over from the originals of this crew that came here. They were called the Golden Ones, the Shiny Ones. They put a little bit of the DNA in too to seed the Pleiadians. After they were done with that, they left. They left here. We don't know where they went. They took off. What was remaining of them, the 100 or so that was really remaining of them, and that's what I get that it was, they took off. But they had also been to Earth a little bit too, and they had helped out Earth 1 billion years ago when Earth had Earth humans. Of course, the Pleiadians that you hear about that were here in Lemuria and Atlantis that we talk about are the Pleiadians that are there now, of course. But 1 billion years ago, there was some Pleiadians that made their mark here on the planet, right? And that's why it kind of confuses the Pleiadians a little bit of now. They're like our ancestors, your ancestors. They know that too, but they're still searching for answers too, because they've got relics and shit on their planet, on those planets that have been settled, the biodomed and the 3 that were settled. They found stuff too there that doesn't jive with their history. Okay, so they're trying to figure out exactly who those people were that were destroyed there. But those people that were destroyed there were the ones that originally had seeded Earth humans 1 billion years ago. Before that, those Earth humans destroyed themselves. Some of these races, I know Daryl talks about this. Daryl, Bashar Anka talks about this sometimes. They're gone. He'll make the comment, many civilizations, they're just not here anymore and they're gone. And it's true, they are. Okay, so the galactic history is very vast. I could go on forever and ever and ever, and I'll probably talk more about it. If somebody wants to ever come on and talk with me about it that's really enlightened about this stuff and knows, I'm not looking to dispute anybody, and I'm not looking for anybody to dispute me. If you have some food for thought, fine. But I'm pretty confident in what I know, even though I might not be able to articulate all of it, and the reason that is because there's so much of it. Okay, so but a lot of people are directly from Andromeda or Arcturus that are here. Like, that's where their last lifetime was. Mine has been all over. Lyra, Pleiades, before, and I can remember having grandparents and parents in another place, and they had come from Arcturus to settle Lyra, right? And we fled Lyra. I was part of that crew that fled Lyra, but I was young. I was real young when we went there, okay? And it goes all over the place, right? I was a ship captain during the Lyran-Orion Wars. I got shot down one time, and I was in Mantonkan. The green ones, they helped me out. They got me out of there. I didn't know who they were until about a year ago when I'd heard of the Mints, and I hadn't believed, I've been channeling for years. I couldn't believe I hadn't heard of them. But they're on the outskirts of Orion. And I have, regressions I've done myself where I remember we were in that war, and I was, running a mission into Orion. And somehow I remember being shot down or coming out, and I remember somebody in green coming up to me, and I was surprised it wasn't a reptilian. I was expecting to get captured, and we kind of had an exchange, and they helped me out. They nursed me back to health, and they got my ship running again, and I got out of there. I have about 20 pages that I haven't released of the stories of being from there and from Lyra and being in those wars. But that is who seeded this galaxy and the ones around us. Were these people that left wherever the hell they came from 6 galaxies away. It's my understanding it took them 5 Earth years to get here. Alright? And, comparatively speaking, and this is from years of research, channeling extraterrestrials, and they don't know a lot. The Pleiadians and these races, they are maybe thousands and even millions of years ahead of us technically, and they know that we come from the source, right from the source of all that is. Like we do, but they don't know much more than we do as far as the in-between, the quintillions of septillions of years, if you were to put it in Earth terms. They don't, because it goes on and on and on. Who seeded those people that came to seed us, and before that and on. So you can tell, and these are all young galaxies. So you can tell, comparatively speaking, you can tell that time is so long, it started so long ago, that you could never in a lifetime spit out the number if you were to say it. Right? But yet at the same time, it just happened. It started a second ago, a split second ago. Like a hundredth of a second ago it started. But yet it's so vast and so long ago that you couldn't, to hear the number would blow a person's brain. That's why time is kind of an illusion. And as we get more involved out of this density and more into the, higher dimensions, time will evaporate and it'll all be on it'll mostly be on a horizontal time slate instead of vertical, right? It'll be horizontal and everything will be all at once. That'll happen because your consciousness will be open completely, well, not completely, but it'll be opened a lot more, right? Your consciousness never stops growing until you're at complete oneness with the source again. But your awareness will perceive it all at once, all these dimensions coming together, and you'll be grounded in them all at once. So that's how it'll be. And, like I've said before, the Pleiadians only measure time for historical purposes. They measure in what's called quadrants. So does Procyon. They use quadrants. It's kind of the equivalent to about a quarter of our year. And all it is it's not to run their life with. It doesn't affect them like that, but they use it to just document history, okay, and judge it by that. So that's the only thing they use any sort of a time frame for. Now, the more ascended races than them even, they don't even fuck with it like that. They have just an all-knowing of the isness with the oneness, basically, okay? So that's kind of how it goes, and we're a very, very young galaxy in a very, very young universe, okay? Very young, comparatively speaking. And it goes on and on and on and on. Creation just keeps manifesting, right? And these nebulas, you see, a lot of these nebulas are creation manifestation centers. They create life. Life is being put together in them. You can see them in the clouds even sometimes, these beings. All right, they are building life, is what they're doing. I always joke, hey, you need a new star? You want to refurbish your galaxy, but you ain't got the time. Visit your local creation manifestation center this week, today. They're waiting for you. But creation just keeps spawning and spawning, and there's so many stories to be told that I have. I could go on forever, but that's basically it. The Andromedans and Arcturians are the same. The souls that you meet that are from there, they're mostly alike. You know, there's a little bit of differences, but not enough to really put a finger on. And if you find one, I'll go get you another Arcturian Andromedan, and I'll show you the Andromedans like the Arcturian, and the Arcturians more like the Andromedan. It's so subtle. Okay, and they've all had races, they've all had wars with each other. You know, they had to learn the lessons too. And so here we are. You know, and that's really the history of it, right? And starseeds were sent here from those places. Were seeded here to get these Earth-based souls to get on board with the program, right? And you know, get over that control grip that was put on you millennia ago, millions of years ago, billions of years ago. You know, it just doesn't end, right? But it's all within people, and it's all about them waking up and understanding they are more than they think they are. They are a radio station. They are a receiver. Their pineal gland literally puts out frequencies to the universe. We've talked about that before. And that's how it goes. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for now, but I'm not done talking about this. And maybe I'll release those 20 sheets of Lyra. So, one of them was a channeling I was in a complete daze for all weekend long. Wasn't even drinking or anything. But I lost a weekend just channeling them. And I wish I would have wrote down the whole thing, because what I had written down, it sounded better than a Star Wars script. And I don't have the capability to write that shit. I'm not creative like that at all. But man, what came out of me that weekend, it was fucking amazing. It was a time I could never forget if only I could remember. Alright, this is Rock and Lock, and I'm out.